4 years ago, that was when it started. 4 years ago was the day everything went to shit. I never really cared why. Apparently my employer refused to acknowledge he lost in some election, or there was some corruption scandal. I don't know. It never really mattered. But ultimately, why it happened was irrelevant. The civvies got restless, and hundreds of thousands took to the streets of Tarkov in protest. Crowds threw bricks, and the police responded with bullets. And the whole ordeal was broadcasted live on television for the whole world to see. Yes, speak of a PR nightmare. One thing led to another, and before we knew it, there was a fully fledged civil fucking war, with Tarkov being host to the most intense fighting. Every day was another bombing, or another all-out firefight in the street. Obviously, President Schumack didn't want to risk his own men, so that's when we came in. PMCs, mercenaries, soldiers whose loyalty was bought and sold on the back of a coin. Once I finally got stuck into the action, it went on for about 4 more months, and if I'm going to be honest, the fact the fighting showed no signs of slowing down was honestly fine with me. Every day I spent there was another couple grand in my bank account, right? And the president owed me and a lot of guys I knew some serious back pay. As contracts go, it was a pretty decent gig. But that was before the outbreak. It was in a refugee centre just outside Tarkov. I think Subject Zero was a nurse. One day she just started vomiting out blood as something ate her organs from the inside, and before we knew it, there were dozens infected, and before we knew it, thousands of people had already died to the infection. And only a couple days after the outbreak, the powers that be ordered an evacuation of all remaining loyalist soldiers and implemented a total quarantine of the Tarkov region. I didn't have a problem with the plague though, the fucking locals had it coming, if you ask me. But where I did take issue was when President Schumack, our employer, ordered the evacuation of all his people. There must have been an error in communication, because when all his career troops got the message, the private contractors, we didn't. Before we knew it, before we could realise what was going on, the entire region was sealed off, and anyone who stepped near the border was given warning shots, and if they kept going, they were sent 6 feet under. That left us all alone to get nice and familiar with the armed locals and with the virus. That shit was insane. Like something out of a bad horror movie. One day a man would be at peak physical health, and the next he'd be puking his guts out, and the next he'd be dead. And it had a near 99% kill rate, and nobody was immune. Shit was airborne too, and sure, you could have worn a fucking gas mask, but that didn't make any difference. Sooner or later, you had to take it off. You had to drink the water, you had to breathe in the rotten air from the streets lined with corpses that nobody had the energy or inkling to clean up. Thankfully, however, the 1% who survived the ordeal, they gained an immunity to the virus. I was one of those people. But the fact that me and a handful of my friends survived did not make us safe. Because when the food ran out and help never came, well, shit got messy real fast, and the fighting started up all over again. The only real difference? We just had less targets to shoot at. Then Little Bird over the radio tells me that the UN gets involved, sets up shop behind the border, and joins in with the fun of shooting anyone who runs towards them. They even launch occasional raiding parties to extract virus samples, in which they blow to bits anyone who steps in their way. And what did the almighty international community do? Did they send in bioterrorism specialists? Did they airdrop in food and water? No, they just left us. That was 4 years ago. Some of the more naive survivors I've met have said that they're gathering up resources, looking before they're leaping, before they'll leap in and be our salvation. But you know what? Fuck that. Fucking bollocks to that, right? They locked us in hell on earth and threw away the fucking key. Their master plan is not to make a cure. It's to let us die, and for the uncontrollable virus to die with us. Whether it be by bacterial infection, starvation, or by the good old Kalashnikov. And I can't deny that it's a plan that so far has worked wonderfully. Right now, 0.1% of the population is still kicking, and that number day by day gets just that little bit smaller. Now it's just me. A handful of what friends I've got left, and a goal. A single goal that hasn't just become my life, it's consumed it. My existence now is nothing short of pure purpose. To survive and get the fuck out of Tarkov. Even if that means I have to squeeze the life out of each and every arsehole in this shit stain of a town to do it. And besides, all those people who told me to sit tight, to wait for someone to come and save me, all of them, they're dead. If you found this, this is my journal. This is my confession of the people I've killed and the shit I've done, and the terrible truths I've discovered along the way. So that, hopefully, one day, somehow, this will be evidence enough to shine light into what really happened here, and bring those responsible to the end they deserve. This is my confession. This is my exile. This is my story.